Well, good day, North Point. How are we feeling? Good. It's good. Man, I just want to start out by just saying this. I don't know what brought you here today. I don't know if it's you come every single Sunday and this is something that you do. I don't know if you were invited by somebody and this is the first time you're here and you're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you were driving by the road and you pulled in here in Edmonton or in Vegreville or Northeast, or I don't know if you're just flipping through YouTube and all of a sudden this pops up. I want you to know something. It is not an accident that you're here. It is not an accident. You might think it's an accident. It might feel like an accident. But the truth is this, that God actually has you here because he has something that he wants to say to you. You are not here by accident. So we're in the middle of our series where we're looking at the story that makes sense of our story, where we're exploring Genesis chapters 1 through chapters 11. See, these chapters reveal this truth that the universe wasn't created by accident. It didn't just happen. It wasn't just spontaneous or happen by chance. And neither did we. We're not accidents. We exist intentionally because we were created by God. We were wanted and chosen by him. That's why we exist. And in his infinite and glorious goodness, God tells us this story, a story that gives us perspective, a story that helps to understand our own stories more clearly. And so today, as we look at the story that makes sense of our story, we're going to look at Genesis chapter 4. And in this chapter, we see Adam and Eve. They have their first two sons, Cain and Abel. And their story starts with an offering to God. Now, Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. And so we see what's happening here. Both Cain and Abel brought offerings to God that fit what they did for a living. It fit their vocation. Cain worked the land, and so he brought fruit from the land. Abel looked after the sheep. He was a shepherd, and so he brought some of his flock. So let's keep going here. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. So I think there could be a lot of, what on earth is going on here in this story? You see, I can understand Cain's perspective. I can understand that Cain might be sad. He might be disappointed. I can understand that this could make him jealous, but angry, so much so that his physically affects his body. His face was downcast. Have you ever met people who their physical appearance reflected exactly what they were feeling? It's not just that they wear it on their sleeve, like they're wearing it on their face. It's like, those people, right? You meet them and you're like, well, I wonder what they're feeling. How do you really feel about what's going on? That's what Cain was going through at that moment. He was absolute downcast. It was affected his body. This guy was ticked. Verse 6, then the Lord said to Cain, as if he needed to ask, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? You see, who's he angry at? Where's this anger coming from? At Abel? Yeah, partly. I think, but most, Cain is angry at God. You see, God's favor for Abel and his offering, and God's disfavor for Cain and his offering made him very angry at God. You see, both brothers are just bringing offerings that are suitable for their vocations. Cain worked the fields and Abel worked as a shepherd. So what's the basis of God's favor for Abel and his disfavor and disregard for Cain and his offering? I think the text seems to point to something in Cain's attitude that wasn't pleasing to God. Take a look at this. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. You see, the emphasis is on the person before the gift. The issue is not the gift itself, but the person presenting the gift to God. There was something different about Abel that pleased God, and something about Cain that displeased God. What is it? Well, I think Hebrews actually gives us a little bit of a glimpse of what this is. It says this: by faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offering. By faith. You see, Abel's offering wasn't inherently better than Cain's. There wasn't anything about the offering that was better, but Abel's attitude, his orientation, his heart, his perspective, the way that he approached God, Abel's offers his gift by faith. Abel offers his gift by acknowledging that God is God, that God is master, that God has first place in all things. He offered his gift by faith. But so what's Cain's attitude? You see, Martin Luther says it this way, and I think this can encapsulate a little bit about what Cain's attitude was. He says this: Cain could properly and truthfully take pride in his very high nobility, for he was the first to be born of man. You see, Adam and Eve, their first son, the first person, the first human to be born of man was Cain. So when Cain is born, Eve, his mother, almost seems to brag a little bit about it. She says this: with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Genesis 4:1. It's possible that Eve fostered a bit of pride in this first son, this being the first to be born of man. These words that she spoke can also be translated as, I have gotten a man as the Lord. It's almost as if she's saying, as the Lord creates man, an Adam, I created man, an Adam. I have gotten man. I have gotten a man, the Lord. It's almost as if she's taking this. So from day one, Cain seems to think of himself as first. He is the first, but he thinks of himself as the first, as occupying first place. And apparently, he comes to expect that others think of him as first as well. Cain even begins to expect God to think of him as first. So when Cain goes and he offers this gift, this offering to God, he's not coming as Abel did by faith, but he's coming kind of this puffed up. This Cain expecting God to treat him favorably, to give him special treatment. After all, he is Cain the first. Of course, God will have special favor on me. I'm Cain the first. It's like he comes before God, not by faith, but by works, appealing to something within himself, something within his human status, something within himself that he thinks makes him somehow worthy or hold the right to or deserve God's favor because of who he is. Abel, however, comes before God in faith, realizing that he has no right to claim. There's nothing of himself or about himself that obligates God. He comes depending solely on God's mercy, on God's grace. He comes, as Hebrews says, as we read it, by faith, knowing that God doesn't owe him anything. See, Cain's problem is that he has a faulty view of himself. He has a faulty view of himself. And see, just as Cain assumed that he had first place with Adam and Eve, so he assumed that somehow he had first place with God, and somehow God owed him. And you see, what makes Cain so angry in this situation, so angry at God, is that God does not operate on Cain's system of values. God does not honor or affirm what Cain's view of himself is. Cain, the firstborn, so what? It makes no difference to God. As we see in the rest of Genesis and throughout the entirety and the rest of Scripture, it's faith that God responds to. It's faith that God is pleased by. Hebrews 11:6 says, and without faith, it is impossible to please God. This is about faith. Abel offered his gift by faith. Cain offered his gift by pride. It is impossible to please God without faith. See, in this moment that God does not show favor to Cain and his offering, Cain's self-centered world is not just threatened, it comes unglued, and he becomes unhinged, furious, angry at God. God is not playing by Cain's rules, and Cain is not going to have any of it. It's like he's not going to stand for this. How dare you, God? And what makes it worse for Cain is that God doesn't accept Cain's view of Abel either. See, all his life, Cain has expected Abel, the second-born, the inferior, to play by the firstborn, Cain's rules. Cain comes to see himself as this center of the universe, this hub, and therefore he sees Abel as one of these just orbiting planets that just kind of rotates around him. He really views himself as the center of the universe, the most important. Cain looks at Abel as either someone useful for his own gain that he can use, or as someone who's an obstacle to subdue. God's favor for Abel changes the playing field for Cain. See, in our fallen state, in our broken world, in our broken lives, we all want to be the center of our own world. And we want to be not just the center of our own world, we want to be the center of everybody else's world. We see ourselves as the main character in the story. We want other people's decisions to be made that best affects us. We want other people to rearrange and reorient their life around me and what I want and what's going to make my life better and what's going to make my life easier. I don't want to have to sacrifice or compromise anything. They have to change to suit me. You see, and as long as we keep living with this faulty view of ourselves, no one around us is a brother or sister. They're either a means to an end or an obstacle in the way. Or worse, we don't even notice them at all. Because we're so self-absorbed in our own little worlds where we have put ourselves at the center. You see, but God doesn't want Cain or us to suffer from this faulty view. God doesn't want Cain to suffer from this faulty view of himself. So in grace, God appeals to him and corrects him and gives him a way forward. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? What is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it, or you must rule over it." You see, God shows his grace to Cain and his grace to us in this warning that describes sin as a violent animal, ready to pounce on its victim. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." He says it's sitting at your doorstep. Cain, be careful. You see, sin says, go for it. Be the center. Be number one. You deserve the very best and nothing less. Don't let anyone tell you how to live your life. Look out for number one. Follow your heart. Do what feels right. Don't deny yourself anything. You see, Cain's sin is crouching at the door, and God tells him it desires to have you. It desires to have you. Be careful. See, God tells us that we need to rule over these emotions, that we don't let them rule our lives. You need to rule over your sin tendencies, or they will rule over you. But Cain will not give up this infantile self-perception that he has. And as a result, he gets jealous of God's favor for his brother that he thinks should actually be his. And he allows these emotions, this jealousy and this sin that's crouching at his door, he allows them to rule over him, and he becomes very angry with God. How many times have you seen that in your own life? It's like this perfect storm. When we've put ourselves at the center of our own universes, we put ourselves at the center of the universe, and we become jealous of something that's good that's happening for somebody else. Something good is happening in somebody else's life, but we're jealous of it. Somebody else got that promotion over you. Somebody else got that raise over you. They got the car, they got the house, they got the family, they got the vacation that you think you deserve. You see people in your family really excelling and good things are happening in their lives. And it eats away at you. It's like getting those brag letters at Christmas. Anybody get those? Nobody wants to admit because we're upset. But you get those letters like, oh, this is all the good things that are happening in our family and so and this and that and other thing. And you're reading it or you're seeing maybe it's your brother or your sister or maybe it's your nieces or nephews or maybe it's friends. There's good things happening in somebody else's life and it begins to eat away at you. I deserve that. I should be the one that's getting that. I've been through more than they've been through. I need a break. I deserve to have a break. I. Maybe you scroll through social media and you wish it was you. And these things begin to take up far too much space in your brain. You begin to meditate on it. You begin to mull on it. And then when you see these people, you begin to treat them a little bit differently. You maybe start to make sharp comments or snide remarks. Boy, I wish I had the money to be able to do that. Must be nice to have a car that works. Well, if I had what you had, then I would. Or maybe you simply just try to avoid them. You walk by their office or their cubicle at work and you don't say good morning. You've stopped going to the family reunions. You begin to ignore them or avoid them. You see, it's this perfect storm where we've put ourselves at the center, and it creates jealousy, and it causes death in us, and it causes death in our relationships with people around us. See, God warns Cain as he warns us. Deal with your faulty view of yourself, or your faulty view of yourself will consume you. Rule over your emotions, over your jealousy, rule over your tendencies towards sin, rule over these things, or they will rule over you. There are only two options. See, God was fighting for Cain's soul as God is fighting for your soul and my soul in this, because he knows what can happen when we put ourselves at the center of the universe. See, in God's grace, he exposes the Cain in us, these tendencies to put ourselves first and the center of everything. See, I think most of the conflict in our world, whether it be in relationships between individuals or whether it's conflict within a world in nations, it's rooted in this Cain-like bent in all of us to be the center. And this bent leads Cain to devastating action. Abel came from Eve's womb, yes, but ultimately he came from God. It was God who made Abel happen. It was God who put Abel in Cain's life. But because Cain did not see God at the center as the orchestrator, he did not see Abel as a gift, as a work from God, as by the hand and the will of God. See, God's question reminds us that people in our lives, people are in our lives because God put them there. We can overlook them, we can hurry past them, we can use them, we can even ignore them. But here's what Cain's response was. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out into the field." While they were there in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Sin causes death. Because Cain had himself at the center of his own life, he became jealous of his brother. And it led him to murder. The first human being to be born to humanity became the first to murder and take a life. See, when God said in the garden that sin causes death, he knew what he was talking about. When our sin begins to spiral, it creates death. It can cause physical death like it did for Cain. And like Pastor Trevor talked about last week, it can also cause death in our relationships. It can cause death in our relationship with God, death with our relationship with others, death in our relationship with ourselves, death in our relationship with creation. Sin causes death. And here is what the key is. Our sin not only causes death for us, it can cause death for others. How we interact with other peoples can bring life or it can bring death. The words that we speak can bring death. The actions that we take can bring death into areas of others' lives. Our sin brings death to others. See, when we live our lives with ourselves at the center, we live creating a wake of death and destruction around us. We create death and destruction for others. Our choices, our attitudes, our actions impact others, your family, your spouse, your kids, your friends, your coworkers, even people you don't even know. See, God cries out to Cain, "What have you done?" Cain not only killed his brother, who was a burden to him, he also violated, catch this, he also violated the very property of God himself. Every life that God creates belongs to him. And this is a truth that should profoundly impact how we interact in the world around us, how we interact with other people around us, our brothers and our sisters, our friends and our coworkers, the people we pass by on the street or in the store. They are all, every single one of them, male or female, every ethnicity, every social background, every language, young and old, born and unborn, are all made in the image of God, all made by him, all loved by him, all belong to him, all are cherished by him, all carry the very fingerprint of God in their life, the image of God. They were made on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, a life given by the life giver, sustained by the sustainer, and planned by the planner. Our brothers and our sisters, our friends and coworkers, all these people are made by God, belong to him, are the property of him. Psalm 103 says, "Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his." That's why God takes up the cry of Abel's blood. And that's why God protects him from further violence. Pastor Darrell Johnson says it this way. He says, to disregard those who God has made, even the nobodies, is to disregard the God who created them. See, it wasn't the gift that God was unpleased with. It was the heart, the attitude that Cain had as he brought his gift to God. You see, because Cain existed in the center of his life, when confronted with the truth that God is actually at the center, Cain became angry at God, that he wasn't affirming his own perspective of himself or even his perspective of Abel. God warned him that he was walking in very dangerous territory. But Cain did not overcome the sin that was crouching at his door. He did not give up this infantile view of himself. And because of this, he turned his back and walked away from God. You see, we can come to church. We can put our hands in the air and worship. We can give our tithes and our offerings. We can do the part and we can go through the motions. We can be serving. We can look good on the outside. But let me ask you, what's in your heart? Who's truly at the center of your life? What's your perspective of yourself? Have you placed yourself at the center of your life? Do you think that somehow you are more important? Or do you think somehow you're scum, less important, the dirt of the ground? Both extremes put you at the center of your life because you were made by God. He created you. He fashioned you. He knit you together in your mother's womb. What's your perspective of others? Do you see them as tools to be used or obstacles to be overcome? Are you trying to get God to play by your plan? By your rules? By your perception of yourself? By your values? Are you trying to negotiate with God somehow to get your way? God, if you do this, then I will do this. You know, I think for some of us today, it's a day for us to hit the reset button, to step out of the center of our lives, to invite God in to take center spot, to take the center stage for some, maybe for the first time. To recognize that God does not bend his knee to us. We bend ours to him. Maybe today you need to reevaluate your perspective of others, how you've treated them, how you've treated those around you, how you've not recognized life and individuals as made by God, as God's precious possession. And maybe today you need to take some time just to ask God to forgive you for how you've been treating those who he has made. But here's the beautiful thing. There's hope. There's hope. We may have been going in this direction. We may have been living in this way with the center, but God always gives us hope. He always gives us a way forward. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. If we confess. Psalm 86:5 says, you, Lord, are forgiving and good, abounding in love to all who call on you. We just need to call on him. Isaiah 55:7 says, let the wicked forsake their ways and their unrighteous thoughts. Let them turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. Turn from what we were doing. Turn from our thoughts. Turn from putting us in the center of our lives, doing us our own thing. And Joel 2:13 says, return to the Lord, your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he will not turn his face from you if you return to him.